video of the week. All questions that were asked will finally be answered in this video. So let's just kick off the festivities right away. I want to start with two questions that will lead one right into another. First up, we have a question from Magician ecaw. I don't even know how the fuck to pronounce that shit. Anyways, ever since my granddad died, I've been thinking about what does happen after death. It's something I can't wrap my head around. The thought of not knowing what happens to me scares me. I'm an atheist and I've never believed in God. I don't believe that we either go to heaven and hell. I believe that the brain is responsible for our consciousness and not some spiritual soul. Also, in your prior question and answer session that you stated that you don't believe in God either. So, what do you think happens to the human soul, consciousness, mind after death? Personally, I've yet to see any proof that either one exists, and it's not certainly for the lack of trying. For years, scientists have been trying to prove the existence of souls and consciousness through experiments and studies and shit like that, and while certain experiments have shown potential evidence, there's just as many experiments that have proven otherwise. Obviously, I know the one where the guy who died, they showed the energy leaving his body and shit like that, but there were other proofs that showed differently. However, neither has been confirmed through any kind of our current technology or science. Now, who knows what will happen down in the future, but as of right now, there is no firm and concrete proof that either one exists to begin with. And as much as people will say a soul does exist or a consciousness is a reality and it's just an impossible metaphysical presence to prove, that still doesn't sway my personal opinion that neither one exists. And the easiest part about having an opinion that something doesn't exist is that for every scientific and religious sponsored study that shows it could exist, there is an equally independent study that shows evidence doesn't exist. So the sides that believe it can't actually prove it. The sides that don't believe it sit here and still say, hey, you know what? Try and prove me wrong. Next question. Look at this motherfucker's name. Oliver Clothesoff. That sounds like when Bart Simpson would call up the bar and ask for Oliver Clothesoff or some shit. Anyway, he writes a whole fucking wall of text, but I'm just going to sum up what he wrote. He wants to know about agnosticism. Agnosticism is when people are indifferent to certain subjects. So the main one that he wants to know is when it comes to religion. And his question is, do you believe that agnostics are just believing the way they do, or do you think there's enough evidence to come to a conclusion and agnostics should have no reason other than pick a side and have an opinion? And when he comes to the main question, it's really the difference between theists and atheists and whether or not there's enough evidence to believe in God and existence of souls and all that other shit compared to what atheists believe, the existence of Earth, cosmic backgrounds, and all that other bullshit. Now, I want to clarify something because it seems you're a little off base with what agnosticism really is. Agnostic belief is not the middle ground between theists and atheists. Theists believe in God no matter what, while atheists do not believe a God exists. Agnostics is not a creed. It's a principle of proofs and measures. It's the concept that you need to prove something exists or doesn't exist in order for your side to be true. While the belief in God is the most popular example of agnosticism, that's not the sole definition of it. Case in point, my prior question about souls and consciousness, I took an agnostic approach to answering it. The magician ecaw, whatever it was, he asked, what do I think happens to souls after death? As if the theory was already proven that souls or consciousness do exist. I took an agnostic approach in saying that there's no evidence to show that it does or doesn't yet. That's not a stance in between theist or atheist. That's just a principle of proof. So in regards to your questions and agnostics not believing in something, it doesn't have to solely do with religion. It could be applied to any set of beliefs that is still yet to be proven or never will be proven. Religion is always going to be the best example of agnostic beliefs and agnostic proofs, but it's not the only example. Agnostics actually have the easiest argument out of anyone because they get to tell all sides, prove me wrong. Show your evidence. Show me what you have that shows that your theory or your belief is true, and then I will take your side of the argument. But you can be agnostic towards anything, since it's only a principle. It's not a creed. It is not the go-between between theists and atheists. It's literally telling both sides, prove your side to me, and then I will believe you. Next question from Ivankovitz. As you may have heard, everyone is now calling Dylan Roof a terrorist, when he's probably just another bullied, shit childhood, basement-dwelling, wannabe white supremacist white kid with no friends and a gun. So my question, do you think the term terrorist is the correct one? He's definitely something fucked up, but are his motives based in a terrorist agenda? Now, the easiest way to answer this question is with a question itself, and you're going to see how quickly this changes the dynamic of this topic. If Dylan Roof was Middle Eastern, what would you call him? Now, I want you to think long and hard about that, because if he was Iranian, Saudi Arabian, Syrian, Egyptian, whatever the hell you want, I would guarantee you this question would have been answered a whole lot differently or asked a whole lot differently by pretty much anyone. I have no doubt in my mind this is a mentally disturbed racist kid whose parents ignored all the warning signs of trouble. I have no doubt in my mind that it was 100% racially motivated. But when you look at the FBI definition of domestic terrorism, how is that not any different? Their definition is any act that endangers human lives with the intention of coercing a population or government through illegal means. He made claims that blacks were taking over the world, and that one day he will show all the blacks in the world that white people are superior. Racist? Absolutely, but this falls exactly in line with domestic terrorism, coercing a population through illegal means. He wants to kill black people. He wants to scare black people. Removing skin color from this equation, how is this any different from what you would consider traditional terrorist? It's not. Now, I don't want people thinking that all racist acts are terrorism, because it's not like that. There are acts of racism all the time that could be interpreted as terrorism, and this is one of those examples. His sole purpose was to kill and torment people for who they are. That is no different than what ISIS is doing right now. That is no different than what the Taliban have been doing. That is no different than what Al-Qaeda have been doing. They kill, they murder, they coerce, they threaten anybody who they don't agree with just based on who they are. Racism, for all intents and purposes, does have some roots in terrorism. And it's not because all racists are terrorists. I don't want people believing that. But the idea is that you're using your hatred, your anger, your built up, pent up frustration for whatever reason, illogically or not. You're using that to try and coerce and intimidate and threaten another group of people. So to answer your question, yes, this was an act of terrorism. This was an exact act of extreme hatred and racism, and his actions and motives are based on terror, fear, and coercion. It fits the exact definition of what the FBI considers domestic terrorism. Next question from Ace of Spades, and he wants to be called as Ace. I don't know about your history with other sports other than baseball, but I figure I'll ask anyway. During the NBA Finals post-game news conference, LeBron James said that he is currently the best basketball player of all time. I don't want to accept his claim after whining and complaining that he's shown during games 1 through 4. What's your take on it? Obviously, this is a long time ago. You can see when he asked that shit. I'll say this. I can't stand LeBron. He whines too much. He complains when things don't go his way. Like, you know, when he looks at the refs for a call or blaming teammates when he causes a turnover, and his fucking flopping is pathetic. Motherfucker, he's 6'8", 240 or 50 pounds of lean muscle, and he falls to the floor and flops like a fish out of water in order to get a call. It's fucking pathetic to watch. However, there is no denying that he is the best player in the league right now. And it goes just beyond his stats, which always seem to approach triple-double numbers every single game. The difference is LeBron makes his teammates better, and that's something very few players in the league have the ability to say or do. He's not a ball hog, or someone that just likes firing up shots for points and shit like that, like Kobe or Carmelo and shit like that. He passes the ball constantly. He takes control of the point and will distribute to open teammates when he has a chance, or he'll create opportunities to make his teammates open. He rebounds. He plays great defense. That's something a lot of top-tier players cannot say. Melo, Harden, Blake Griffin. LeBron will play excellent defense, and he will cover anyone from the point guard to the center since he's that versatile. He's not the best shooter in the league, but in transition, he is easily one of the most unstoppable players because of his size and speed. Of course, if he misses, he'll flop on the floor and look at the rest for a foul. Oh, what a pussy, man. But the best indicator of how good a player he is that if you were to take him and place him on any current team, would they make the playoffs? Absolutely. You could put him on the shittiest team possible. Sixers, Wolves, Kings, fucking my Knicks. And they will make the playoffs. You could put him on any average team, and they become an immediate contender for a championship. Go ahead, try it. Put him on the Raptors, and look at how a team changes just with him on it. Put him on the Hawks, and see how much that team improves with them. Shit, he practically single-handedly dragged the Cavaliers to the finals and beat the Hawks almost all on his own during the conference finals. He is the best player in the league without a doubt about it. He's also the biggest pussy in the league, but that's another story. Next question, and look at this motherfucking name. He even put the pronunciation. That shit is still hard. Look at that. Smexy I can't pronounce that shit. He's trying to tell me this is how you pronounce it. I still can't say that shit, man. Anyway, man, getting into this shit. I remember one of your past question and answers, you answered a question regarding the stupidest decision you ever made. I've been wondering on the flip side, what do you think is the smartest decision you have ever made, aside from skipping Black Ops 2, because that one's a no-brainer? I'll tell you right now, I'm a finance kind of guy. I'm a math kind of guy. And one of the smartest things that I ever did, as soon as I got out of college, my main goal was to pay off my student loans. And a big reason for that was because if I paid my student loans ahead of time, if I were able to get it within a few years, I would have only had to pay $24,000. However, if I waited all the way into the end of paying off my student loans and all the interest kicked in, it would have been over $65,000. I'm like, this is no fucking brainer. So what I did, right after college, I saved every fucking penny I had. I put every dollar I made into that loan in order to pay it off as quickly as I possibly can. Within a year and a half, I had paid off all my student debt. Instead of the 10 years that people are getting stuck with all their debt, I paid it off in 1 year and 9 months. That's how quickly I was able to get myself out of debt, and it was the smartest fucking decision I ever made. Next question from Chavez Watt. What do you think about the debate about putting Harriet Tubman on U.S. currency? Now, for those outside of the United States, I'll explain to you. Like any currency, we have famous people on our bills. We use a lot of the founders of our nation, founding fathers and shit like that, the framers of our Constitution, pretty much anybody that had a lot of contribution to our historical significance, they were put on our currency. So apparently, there's this new poll in which we wanted to get a female on some of our currency, and the vote was for Harriet Tubman. For those who don't know who Harriet Tubman was, part of the slavery all those years ago, she was one of the integral parts of the Underground Railroad, which was able to take slaves from the South and bring them to the North so that they would be free. But the debate right now is whether or not they're going to take Andrew Jackson off of the $20 bill in order to put Harriet Tubman on the bill. So people are like, wait a second, Andrew Jackson was just as important. Why are you going to take him off of a $20 bill just to put Harriet Tubman on? Personally, I don't see anything wrong with putting her on some currency. I think she's a very great historical figure to use. However, why would you use a $20 bill? Why not create a separate bill or whatever the fuck it is, a $25 bill? Just create a $25 bill. Who gives a fuck? Next question from Adul 620. If you could pick 3 companies, burn them down, and make sure they never had a chance to start up again, which 3 would you pick? And it doesn't have to be video game related companies. Now, I know people would want me to say Bethesda or Treyarch because that's probably the 2 people would most want me to hear say. And yes, they would make it at the top of the video game list, and that would be my first 2 choices. But the bigger item for me is always going to be tobacco. The amount of money companies make selling cancer is astronomical. You know, here's a cancer stick. Here's poison. Go kill yourself. And on top of that, how about you poison those around you even if they don't fucking smoke? And that would be my biggest pet peeve. So if I had my choice to go after 3 companies, I would go after the big 3 in the United States. Philip Morris, RJ Reynolds, and Lorillard. Now, unfortunately, that would not remove the world problem from tobacco. Obviously, other companies would just pick up the slack. They would come along, take their place and shit like that. But at least it's a starting point in trying to remove one of the most disgusting products humans have ever created. Next question from Pyro Puncher. So since I really wanted an hour's worth of opinion on something, what is your opinion on Justin Bieber from drag racing highs to the failure that his relationship with, I believe, Selena Gomez? Look, he's like any kid with that amount of money and fame, adoration, and resentment. You know, think about this for a second. He became famous only as a teenager when he was adored by tween girls, yet he was ripped by others for looking feminine. He made millions of dollars, and he did it as a teen during an age when social media was an ingrained part of teenagers' lives. How many messages do you think he saw from girls that adored him? How many messages do you think that he saw people that couldn't stand him? So naturally, he rebelled. He lashed out, and he acted like any kid with money would have done. People already hated him, so why bother trying to appease them? Teenage girls favored him no matter how much stupid shit he pulled, so his behavior was expected, because that's what assholes do. Personally, what he does doesn't shock me. He sounds like every other rich, spoiled teenager with nothing else better to do with his goddamn time. The fame went to his head, the anger and resentment went to his head, and basically, he lashed out like an asshole. Next question from Elpancho 751. You see the whole top section there. He mentions how much he likes my content. Like I tell everyone, anytime someone says that, I always tell them thank you. So I'm glad you appreciate the content that I put out. I'm glad you see entertainment in my channel. You keep coming back to this motherfucker. And anyway, to get into his question, you obviously enjoy making new content and videos for our viewing pleasure, and we enjoy watching it. But there are some videos that must have been torture, or at least sucked to make for you, like the curse-free videos or the Mission Impossible videos, some hip-fire commentaries. I'm curious, what video was the least enjoyable for you to do, or that sucked the worst? The very first Mission Impossible. You know, unlike any video I had done to this point, it was 100% scripted. Not only was it 100% scripted from start to finish, but I didn't know how to approach the video at the time, and the mistake that I made during the very first video was that I kept trying to do it in one complete take. No breaks in the commentary, no editing, nothing. It was done completely in one full shot. And the problem with that approach was that it couldn't be done in one shot, not without a shitload of practice. I spent the better part of 2 weeks doing that commentary just for that video because I kept making mistakes. And instead of breaking up the commentary in pieces like I do now with the series, I was doing everything in one take, and every little fuck up meant that I had to start from scratch. That's why I said I would never do another one, because of the time consumption it took just to produce that clip. It was awful to do, and it was frustrating because I didn't know any better back in the day. Now, obviously, I do know what I'm doing with my videos. I do it much differently than when I do the first one, but man, that shit was a pain in the fucking ass. You know, because I did that video so many times, because I attempted the commentary so many times, I ended up memorizing the entire script, and that's what helped me do the video towards the end. It was a learning experience, to say the least, and I learned how not to do that video in the future, but easily my most annoying video to do when I did my commentaries. Next question from MI2 Lethal. Do you think monthly subscription games will ever be a thing on consoles? Why or why not? Hell no. And the big reason for that that is that we already paid for PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live. I'll tell you right now, on PC, it works because all these years you paid for the dedicated service, you paid for the better service, you paid for a better product online. When it comes to the consoles, we do not have the connections that the PC players have. We don't have Steam or whatever the hell it is, and PlayStation Network is certainly not as fucking reliable. So in order to tell somebody you have to pay $9.99 a month for the service just to connect to all the other games, and then on top of that you're gonna have to pay $15 just for this game? No, it's never going to work out. No matter how much they try it, no matter how much they want to attempt to do some shit like that, it's never going to work. Next question from Creeperman154. What would be your perfect day? As in, what would you do? Where would you spend it? Who would you spend it with? Blah, 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 blah. I actually posted a video of it all those years ago. It would be snowboarding in Whistler with my better half. I love snowboarding. As much as I love the beach, I love snowboarding more. I would much rather be at Whistler than in the Caribbean, so that would be my perfect day. Next question from Francisco Huizar, and there's another fucking wall of text. So here's where we're gonna sum this shit up. He has an argument between him and some girl at his school over how important lives are, whether you go for all lives or whether you just go for the ones that are important. So at the issue in the bottom is, what do you think is most important? Killing 1,000 people so that millions of lives will be saved, or saving 1,000 people even if 1,000,000 people die later? Now, if you go back to my prior question and answer session, one of the things that I said that'd be one of the most controversial things that I would think is, I said I would wipe out half the human population. And that just goes to show you where I fall in this line of thinking. My logic is, humans have grown to unsustainable numbers. We have. Our populations have grown significantly and are going to continue to grow to the point that we cannot sustain our lifestyle. We cannot sustain ourselves on this planet and keep everything else healthy, since we are the top of the food chain. We're depleting water supplies. We're depleting food supplies. We're polluting the planet. We're killing our water sources. We're making species go extinct. And I'm not even talking about fucking global warming or any of that other shit. We're poisoning this planet with all of our bullshit. So the fact that I said that we would get rid of half the population under my rule shows you exactly where I fall in line with this shit. My personal feeling is that humans have grown to the point that we're basically a fucking virus. If you want to eliminate the virus, you have to cut its head off at the source. So for my solution, it would have always been, let's kill half the human population, or let them pick whatever half. I really didn't give a shit. And it would give the other half of the population a chance to sustainably keep themselves and still live off the resources that the planet is giving us. Otherwise, the route that we're going right now, we're going to kill off everybody. The fact is, if we continue down this path where we're overexpanding, populations growing past 9, 10, 12, 15 billion people, there is nowhere on this planet for all these human beings to live, and no resources to support this entire population. So yes, I'm of the firm belief we need to kill off half the population just to make life sustainable for the other half. Next question from Avxgamer. Can I change my prior question since it was so easy for those who wondering? He was asking what's on my bucket list, and my bucket list, I'm too fucking young to it. Basically would have been like shit like travel and whatnot. So if so, what's your take on Bill Cosby now that documents show he admitted in court to drugging women for sex? I'll say this. In a court of law, you are innocent until proven guilty. However, in the court of public opinion, that motherfucker is guilty as hell. Holy shit, you know, I didn't personally need that court document in order to believe all those women, but that admission of guilt in court was pretty much the smoking gun needed. And I'm going to talk about sexual misconduct and the burden of proof in a minute, but here's my thing. With one woman making an accusation, you can still give someone the benefit of the doubt. You know, who knows? Claims are made all the time, someone's famous and shit like that, it always happens, but someone is innocent until evidence shows them as guilty. But then it turned into 2 women, then 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 fucking women all saying the same thing. And you know that old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire? Oh yeah, Bill Cosby's head must have been on fucking fire, because 40 women accusing you of the same exact thing with the same exact details is more than enough to know that cocksucker is guilty. You know, this court ruling was from years ago, but it just solidifies their claims. And for those where the statute of limitations hopefully hasn't run out, I hope they take that cocksucker for every fucking dollar he's worth. What a fucking scumbag, man. All these years, we thought that Jello pudding pop pushing motherfucker was the ultimate cool dad on TV, and now we find out he's nothing more than a fucking sexual predator. I hope there is some chance in hell he will be thrown in jail for the rest of his goddamn life. You know, in this case, it really highlights the issue of sexual assault and how hard it is to report as a crime. You know, without any evidence, sexual assault is going to be the victim's word versus the perpetrator's word. Do you believe the accuser or the accused? And with the way the law works, the accused is always assumed innocent until they can be proven guilty. In cases of sexual assault with no evidence, it's virtually impossible to prove someone guilty. No matter how heartbreaking the story, no matter how much detail the person can remember, if there's no evidence against the accused, that person has to be presumed innocent. And even now, where evidence is produced, DNA is collected, rape kits are performed, over the years, lawyers have developed this new strategy. She wanted it. It was consensual. They had consensual rough sex. See, in prior years, without DNA, lawyers would just say, show me the proof something happened, and the victims really couldn't. Now with DNA and better detection techniques, lawyers have turned this into blaming the victim. She wanted to have sex. She was drunk and now regrets it. She consented and now doesn't want to admit to that. She's lying. In Cosby's case, there's no such defense, thankfully. He drugged women. He didn't ask for consent, even though his wife's saying he got consent in even one of these fucking cases. Get the fuck out of here. And he took advantage of helpless women using his power and fame. So there's no question the evidence and admission in court will show that he's guilty. But he's just one of many cases like that where victims have to suffer through this. His case is cut and dry, while others have much more difficult cases to prove. And it shows the issues when it comes to having sexual assault cases brought in front of a court of law. Next question from BrandenExecute. No Great Wall of China text this time. What are your thoughts on Flight MH370, and do you believe the official story or something else was at play? He also asked the second question, and he says he even knows it's more than one question. But would I ever do a live commentary of me playing a game? Specifically, I want to be the guy. Now, I've done live commentaries in the past, and it was mainly for Mass Effect. And since Destiny is the only game that I'm really playing right now, chances are that would be the only game that I would do it for. However, getting back to your original question, Flight 370. What do you believe happened? In all honesty, I have no fucking idea. I don't really know what the fuck happened. Now, obviously, if there was some nefarious play, if some kind of terrorist decided to kidnap the plane, hijack it, take it away, by now, we should have heard some ransom money. By now, there should have been something to announce, hey, motherfucker, we got your plane, do you want these people back or not? But since we haven't heard that, I highly doubt any kind of ransom has been involved in it. My guess is, like everyone else, it crashed. As to where it crashed, I have no fucking idea. Obviously, there are people more smarter than I am. There are people who are more skilled in this area than I am, looking throughout the entire world, usually in the Pacific Ocean or some shit like that, or the Indian Ocean, wherever the hell it is. They're trying to find a plane, hoping based on some information that they had prior that they could find some blip to give an idea of where the plane is. Personally, I think it's somewhere in the ocean somewhere. I don't know what happened with the pilot. Maybe the equipment failed. Maybe they did another one of these German flights. You know, that asshole who decided to crash the plane in the fucking mountains for some reason. But if they're gonna find it, it's most likely gonna be at the bottom of the ocean. Anyways, that does it for all your questions this time around. I want to thank everyone for participating. Hopefully you guys got the answers you were looking for. And as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.